Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, the brand new sequel to the 1988 comedy horror. In this video we will dive straight into its deeper themes and symbolism. There will be spoilers.
The juice is loose.
Allow me, dear viewers, to run something past you. In every horror story, I think at least one of two things will always happen. It invites you in, you invite it in. By it, I'm not referring specifically to Stephen King's Pennywise, although he's definitely an example of this. No, I'm referring to the central threat of the story, whatever it happens to be. An agent of chaos, a bringer of death. It might take the form of a masked killer, or a monster, or an alien, or a demonic presence. Either it invites the central characters into its space, or they invite it into their space, or both. In the Beetlejuice movies, we see this play out as a kind of dance, a dialogue, a back and forth between the human souls in need of assistance and Beetlejuice, a demonic entity who says he can help. In the first film, we see him commanding a fly, which is an interesting detail. In the Bible, the prince of demons is referred to as Beelzebub, which means Lord of Flies. Beetlejuice is a cold caller, a sleazy salesman, with his own junk mail and cheesy advertisements. In the sequel, he even puts out feelers via smartphone pop-ups. He's reaching out, he's inviting the central characters to invite him into their world. If they let him, he will fix everything for them. That's his claim. But in both films, the central characters are warned not to let him in.
What about that guy in the flyer, Beetle?
Don't even say his name. He was my assistant. But he was a troublemaker. He went out on his own as a freelance bio-exorcist. Claimed he could get rid of the living.
Almost every horror story has one thing that is off limits. It might be a particular room, or a book, or a spell. It's simple, just stay away from that one thing. But you know what happens. Eventually someone goes into that room, or opens that book, or casts that spell. Whether they're driven by desperation, or curiosity, or desire, or stupidity, they go there. They do the one thing they shouldn't do, and we're screaming at them, don't do it. But they do it. And it wouldn't be a horror story if they didn't. The Genesis account in the Bible is an origin story for the cosmos. It's also an origin story for horror itself. Because what do we see in that story? We see humanity in the Garden of Eden, and they are told by their creator that there is one tree that they should not eat from. And what do? They eat from it. They succumb to the temptation of the serpent and unleash destruction. Our capacity to press the self-destruct button is remarkable. So hypothetically, what would it take to invite the forbidden fruit of Beetlejuice into the reality of the protagonists?
The only way he can be brought back is by calling his name 3 times.
This is another recurring idea in the genre. If you call X's name n number of times, X will show up.
Voldemort.
Candyman.
But why are stories like this so common? Well, they highlight the reality that words are powerful. We send them out from our mouths, and they accomplish things. They shape the world around us, for good or for ill. Literally. Think about that when you next pick up the phone to order a pizza. We're used to the idea that saying certain specific words can summon certain specific people to our homes, and Beetlejuice is a heightened version of that. In his case, saying his name 3 times invites him from the realm of the dead into the realm of the living. Now, it's very tongue-in-cheek. These movies take ideas from various spiritualities and subvert them. Normally, an exorcist is a person who expels impure spirits from the realm of the living, but Beetlejuice is a bio-exorcist, an impure spirit who expels humans from the realm of the dead.
You want to get rid of them pesky living critters once and for all? Well, come on down and see me, folks, because I'm the after-night's leading bio-exorcist.
The realm of the dead is depicted as a kind of shadowy yet quirky existence. When humans die in these movies, they enter a kind of cosmic waiting room known as the Neither World. They retain their injuries, however grisly those may be. They are still able to interact with the realm of the living, but to a lesser degree. Their existence is now less corporeal, if you like. And most horrifying of all, the Neither World is plagued with bureaucracy.
You don't have an appointment, do you?
Well, we didn't know how to make one.
Full of seemingly arbitrary rules and regulations. We're even asked to feel sorry for spirits which have been exorcised from the realm of the living.
That's the lost souls room. A room for ghosts that have been exorcised. Good devils. That's death for the dead.
The sequel offers the possibility for the deceased to move on. They can catch the soul train to the great beyond, whatever that means. But otherwise, both films keep the realm of the living and the realm of the dead locked in perpetual entanglement. The best you can do is postpone your death. And once you do die, you might as well try and find something to do in the Neither World whilst you wait for a ticket to whatever lies beyond. And you might be waiting a while. If you try to escape the system entirely, you might find yourself on the desert moon of Saturn, where vicious sandworms are waiting. These worms churning the landscape symbolise the chaos of the Beetlejuice universe. It seems that everything is handed over to cyclical overturning forces. Human beings are depicted as slaves, as wanderers in the wilderness, and as exiles. The Beetlejuice universe is an endless series of power plays between the living and the dead. The living are trying to hold on to what they have whilst they have it, and the dead are trying to get back what they've lost. They invite you in, you invite them in. Sometimes it's voluntary, sometimes it's involuntary. Another thing the sequel introduces is the possibility of the dead coming back to life. The deceased Jeremy attempts to steal life from Astrid by deceiving her. Astrid's mother, Lydia, turns to Beetlejuice in desperation. He knows the ins and outs of the Neither World, but enlisting his services is costly. He always demands something in return.
I can get you in, but it's a quid pro quo.
And as his perverse presence gets enmeshed once again with Lydia's life, it becomes very difficult to get rid of him. To quote the most famous exorcist in human history, Jesus Christ, no one can enter a strong man's house without first tying him up. Then he can plunder the strong man's house. The question is, who has the power to bind up Beetlejuice once and for all? The return of his ex-wife Dolores certainly makes him shudder, but she seems to be just as malicious as he is, and she is dealt with swiftly by a sandworm. The Beetlejuice movies work as dark comedies because they are subversions of the central story in our cultural memory, the Christian story. Whatever you make of it, it is the story in which the eternal Son of God volunteers for death on the cross, transforming it into the door to resurrection life and vanquishing the meddling forces of evil once and for all. Whatever you make of that story, it has profoundly shaped our outlook on the world. In order for Beetlejuice to be as subversive as it is, it needed something to subvert. You can't invent a concept like bioexorcism unless there is already such a thing as exorcism. It is because of the Christian story that we can laugh at a figure like Beetlejuice. Otherwise, the Beetlejuices of this world really would get the last laugh. And what a depressing reality that would be. My name is Thomas Thorogood. I get into the deeper meaning of movies. Thank you so much for watching. Your presence on this channel is never taken for granted. Do subscribe if you'd like to stay in the loop, and remember, it's deeper than you think.